Hey everyone, it's David Bombal back with the amazing OTW. OTW, great to have you back on the channel.
It's always an honor to be on the best YouTube channel for cybersecurity and IT, David. Thank you for having me.
OTW, I love getting you on the show. You've been hacking for many, many years. You've been working with government agencies. You look at everything from a hacker's point of view. So I think it's fantastic to have you on the show to show us, how do I know if I've been hacked, or how do I know if I've got malware in my computer? Because you're a hacker. So it's great to get your perspective, to help us better protect ourselves.
David, I'm always happy to help. And as a hacker, I know what it takes to take control of a system. And I want to help people to understand how they can detect a hack on their system. And oftentimes, those symptoms are not a hack, but the things I'm going to show you here are more definitive of what is actually taking place on your system.
I really appreciate it. OTW, you've shared so much knowledge over the years with our audience. And just for everyone who doesn't know, OTW, he's the author of this book, Linux Basics for Hackers, very, very popular book on Amazon. He's also the author of Getting Started, Becoming a Master Hacker, as well as I always say, one of my favorites, Network Basics for Hackers. OTW, I'm really looking forward to this interview. You're a hacker. You have hacked all kinds of things. You've told me stuff that we can't share on YouTube. We share some of it. I believe today you're going to tell people and answer this question: how do I know if I've been hacked?
Exactly. I get email probably at least one a day, every day, people saying, I've been hacked. What do I do? But really, the question they should ask is, how do I know if I've been hacked? And so that's what I want to address. And maybe in a later video, we can talk about what to do about it. But let's first try to determine whether or not you've been hacked. And, oftentimes people will, make some assumptions that they've been hacked. And really, there's something just not working right in their computer. So, and sometimes it's hard to tell the difference between a malfunctioning computer or a malfunctioning user or an actual hack. But what I've learned is that in most cases, probably over 90% of the cases, they are not hacked. It's something with the system or the user. So let's talk about indications of whether or not you've been hacked. Okay?
Yeah, I think it's important because I think we both get this thing often where people say the government's hacked me, and they come up with this long, tall story, right?
Lies.
Of this unbelievable hack. And it's firstly, I don't think you're a target. And secondly, this is a bit outrageous. But I mean, I'll leave it to you. How do I actually know if I've been hacked?
Yeah, well, one of the things that we do is that in some of those cases, we actually take them on as cases to examine whether or not they've been hacked. So that's something that we, as a service that we offer. But I will tell you that well over 90% of the cases, there is nothing there. And so before you call us or anybody to determine whether or not you've been hacked, which of course is going to cost you something, you can do some basic things yourself to determine whether or not you've been hacked. And so, but I'll tell you that over 90% of the cases that we actually get involved in, there's nothing there. It's just a malfunctioning user, a malfunctioning system. But sometimes it's hard to distinguish the difference between them. But as you said, right, we get a lot of these people who say, the government, I get a lot of them, okay, I can't say for you, but I get a lot of them that say that somebody, usually it's the government, has hacked everything in my life. They have hacked my car, my house, my phone, my computer, my passport. I've heard that one too. They've hacked my passport. Right? Usually when somebody comes to me and says everything has been hacked, I usually say this is not probably real. If you're saying, that my phone's been hacked or, my computer's been hacked and there's some indication, then there's a possibility that it's real. But if you say everything has been hacked, that's probably your imagination.
Now, cars have changed our lives over the years, and cars are changing again. In this case study from Brilliant, maximizing electric car value. We learn how to build regression models and use correlation and regression to dive into data on electric vehicles to discover what a buyer gets for their money. Now, what's fantastic about Brilliant, and I really like this, is their training is very interactive and very hands-on. The training starts off very gently and goes deeper and deeper so that you can build regression models to learn how to work with data. Brilliant is a learning platform designed to be uniquely effective. Their first principles approach helps you build understanding from the ground up. Each lesson is filled with hands-on problem solving that lets you play with concepts, a method proven to be 6 times more effective than watching lecture videos. All content on Brilliant is crafted by an award-winning team of teachers, researchers, and professionals from MIT, Caltech, Duke, Microsoft, Google, and others. Brilliant helps you build your critical thinking skills through problem solving. So while you're building real knowledge on specific topics, you are also becoming a better thinker. I probably don't have to say this. Learning a little every day is one of the most important things that you can do, both for personal as well as professional growth. Brilliant helps you build real knowledge in only a few minutes a day with fun lessons that you can do whenever you have time. It's also the opposite of mindless scrolling. In this case, they're using case studies, maximizing electric car value to teach you a concept. So rather than just some concept that's difficult to grasp, this shows you through interactive training how things actually work. Brilliant are a great way to pick up these skills and help you change your life. Brilliant cover a whole bunch of topics. David loves this because he's more a computer science person or data science person. They have over 70 courses. My favorites include topics like how LLMs work and the Python courses. I really want to thank Brilliant for supporting me and sponsoring my channel, which allows me to create more free content and hopefully help you change your life. If you want to try everything that Brilliant has to offer for free for 30 days, go to brilliant.org/David Bombal or scan the QR code on screen, or you can click the link in the video description. You'll also get 20% off an annual premium subscription if you use my link below. Again, I really want to thank Brilliant for being such a fantastic partner.
So let's talk about the indications that you've been hacked. And then we'll look at some very specific techniques that you can use to determine for certain whether or not you've been hacked. And sometimes it's still a little bit hard, but let's talk about some of the simple ones. All right. Okay. Let's examine it from a simple to an intermediate level. We're not going to go into advanced here. We'll talk about some of the simple things that the average user can look for and maybe with a little bit of sophistication can do, okay, to determine whether or not they've been hacked. All right. So let's talk about some of the simple ones. One of the things that is out there that happens a lot is your computer is a lot slower.
Yep.
Right? And this is because if there's malware on the system, somebody's using the resources of your computer, right? It might be part of a botnet, right? It might be part of somebody using it to mine crypto, right? These are common hacks, right? So somebody can hack your system and use its resources to generate cryptocurrency, which generates money for them. So that's a real thing, that why somebody would want your computer, even if you don't have any enemies in the government or in cybercrime, right? Somebody could want to use your system to generate crypto. They can use it as a botnet to, say, attack somebody else. They might use it in a botnet to do password cracking. That's commonly done as well. So if you notice that all of a sudden your system is running a lot slower, that's one of the first signs that there's something amiss here. Second, you get some strange behavior of your system, right? And this happens both from systems that are malfunctioning, right? Like I just got a new Windows update from Microsoft and my system malfunctioned for a long time, but it wasn't hacked. It was simply a new update that Microsoft had implemented and things just weren't working the same. But a hack can sometimes be the same, have the same kinds of behaviors where things just aren't working the way they used to work. Sometimes, the most obvious thing would be that, say, your antivirus is no longer working. Obviously, if the mouse is moving and you're not and you're not controlling it, that means somebody's hacked your system.
Yeah.
So those are a lot of things that you can look for if those things happen. If you see your mouse moving without your moving it, you can be pretty clear that somebody is inside your system, right? And they're moving your mouse. But other things, they are indicators, but they're not definitive. Your mouse moving would be definitive that actually is somebody inside your computer, right? Number 3 on my list is unusual activity in your email or messaging apps, right? So if you're seeing something, for instance, people are getting emails from you that you didn't send, right?
Yeah.
Then that's a good indication, right? Or you can't access your email or your messaging apps, then that's a good indication. One of the things that happens very, very often, corporate and the organization systems get hacked on almost a daily basis, right? And so some company somewhere gets hacked and all of their emails and passwords get dumped, right? And they get dumped on the dark web, right? It's only accessible via Tor. Your viewers know this, right? And we recently talked about the safety of Tor, right? That Tor is not as safe as people think it is. We talked a little bit about that, but people dump their emails and the passwords on the dark web, and there's literally billions of emails and passwords on the dark web, right? And so what somebody can do is not necessarily hack you, but simply go to the dark web, find your email address, right? And find your password. If you haven't changed it, then they can go right into your email, your Gmail account or your Outlook account and take it over. Right? If you haven't changed your password, if you use the same password on that corporate account, say you belong to a gym and you have to pay your monthly dues to that gym, and that corporate gym gets hacked and your email and password's in there, then it gets dumped onto the dark web. Somebody simply collects it, and then takes over your email account, or maybe even other accounts, because if you use the same password on other accounts like your bank accounts or what have you, then they can take over those as well. Right? So that's something to look for. That's usually a good indication that not necessarily you've been hacked, but somebody's taken over your messaging app or your email, right? And that can often lead to the takeover of other accounts because you have other accounts that are linked to that email address, right? So once they have control of your email address, they can do one of these change password on your bank account or your Facebook account or whatever it happens to be. So this is something you want to pay close attention to. All right.
Yeah, don't reuse your passwords. Number 1 rule. Yeah.
That's number 1 rule if you want in cybersecurity is do not reuse the same passwords. Or, if you might some people simply will create 2 sets of passwords or multiple passwords. I mean, they can have a password for every account, but as accounts have grown, we have so many accounts now, right? We have dozens and dozens of accounts. What some people do is that they use 2 separate passwords, one on the highly secure environment, like their bank account or their brokerage account, okay, and use a separate account on all of the others. That limits it down to just 2 emails to remember, 2 passwords to remember. Obviously, the most secure would be to have a different password for each account. It's also important to note that people generally, when they have to change their password, they make very small changes to their password. So if I have your password out of a data dump, and the only thing that you have done is add a 1 after it, okay, or a 2 or a 3 or a 4, right? Or whatever the number, exclamation mark, it's pretty easy for me to be able to crack that. Because if you kept everything else the same, I only have to crack the last digit or 2, right? And there's tools that are specially designed for doing that. right? So make sure that the email and other passwords are significantly different than earlier ones, because once it gets dumped into the dark web, it's easy enough for somebody to simply take that password and create variations of it until they come up with one that actually works. All right. Number 4 on my list is you receive alerts that someone at another computer is trying to access your account. You've probably seen this, right? Maybe you've gone to another computer, you've gone to a tablet or a phone or another computer, and you've tried to access your account. And Gmail or whoever owns the account will send an email saying, we've noticed that there's somebody else logging into your account, okay, from a different machine. And that kind of raises some issues, right? About, we talked about Tor. This is kind of a little diversion here, right? So the little diversion is that people ask me, how do they know that I'm on a different computer, right? And the ways that they know, it's not necessarily your IP address, right? It could be your IP address, right? But what if you're in the same building, in the same home, in the same institution, and you're still using the same IP address? How do they know that? And one of the things that people need to understand is that your browser gives off a lot of information. Right? It's called browser fingerprinting. It gives off a lot of information about who you are. There are at least 50 variables that can be collected about your browser that one can begin to determine what your identity is. And that's one of the things we talked about in the Tor talk, is that even though you might hide your IP address, your browser is going to identify you if you're using the same browser, okay, on both clear web and dark web. So that's one of the things I wanted to just throw in there, is that there's a lot of information, and that's how the good companies, like probably your bank and others, can determine that it's not you logging into your system, because the browser fingerprinting looks different. They know immediately that it's not you. At least the good companies do. The good companies actually collect this information, right, about you, and that way they can protect you. But of course, the bad guys can use the same thing, right? And so it allows somebody who you click on a website, as long as you click on a website, then that kind of information can be extracted from your browser. Okay. Number 5, it should be. Looks like you can no longer access some of your online accounts. That's probably a good sign that you've been hacked, right? But it may be that you just forgot your password too. I mean, there's other reasons why you might not be. But if you know that you have the right password, right login, you can't access the account, whether it be a Netflix account or whatever. And of course, that's a real common hack, is that people take over other people's Netflix accounts or their Amazon accounts because they found their password in the dark web. I've seen a lot of cases where somebody takes over a PayPal account, right? Because PayPal account, you authenticate with just your email address and a password. So if these are available to somebody on the dark web, they can simply log into your PayPal account. Now, PayPal does the things that we're talking about, right, in terms of trying to determine if it's a new device, right? But I've still seen a lot of people simply make payments, okay, from a PayPal account that they have no access to, that's not theirs, from somebody else's. So keep that one in mind, right? If you can't access your online accounts, there's probably something amiss here and you're being targeted. Once again, it doesn't mean that you've been hacked. It means that somebody has your credentials, right? And once they have your credentials, you're using a password, then a lot of other things can fall into place. So as soon as you notice that you can't access these accounts, you need to be on alert, okay? You need to be vigilant that somebody's targeting you. It might just be some kid in his mother's base, 14-year-old kid in the mother's basement who found your username and password on the dark web, but it could be much more nefarious than that. All right. Number 6, unexpected pop-ups or redirects. So this is where things will pop up in your browser, right? And you'll have new tabs open up on your browser directing you to other sites. This is often used as a technique to be able to take your browser to a website that has malware in it. So you didn't actually direct your browser to that website because your browser, hopefully you didn't go there on your own, but your browser might take you there because somebody has been able to hack your browser, right, to redirect you to another site. And then from that site, they install malware on your system. So if you see this is another good sign. Most of the browsers, modern browsers, will try to protect you from this. You'll see messages that say we blocked a pop-up or redirect. If you're using some of the older browsers, you might not, but still, even if you're using a modern browser, a sophisticated attacker can still get past those limitations that are in those browsers. All right. Your email appears on the dark web data dumps. That's what I was talking about. Okay. The average person can simply go to Have I Been Pawned? I'll see if I can put that up on the screen here. Yep, Have I Been Pawned, right? And what they do at Have I Been Pawned is they simply collect all of the emails and password combinations that have been dumped onto the dark web, and they put them into a big database. Okay, it looks like here it is, 14 billion. So when I was saying billions, I wasn't exaggerating, right? There's 18 billion pawned accounts, right? And they also use pastebin accounts as well. And so it shows you some of the largest breaches. But you can put in your email here, and it'll tell you whether or not it's been pawned, right? And if it's been pawned, then you got to start worrying. Right? Then you say, okay, I've got to start changing my passwords before somebody gets control over my account. All right. We'll find out if mine's been pawned. Oh no!
only two data breaches, so that's
not
too bad.
Two data breaches. So it's been pawned. I have to go change my password. Luckily, I change my password often. So whatever's in there is old password. But yeah, there we go. Good example. Yeah. Okay. And so somebody, who I have an account with, okay, has been breached, right?
Happens all the time.
Right. Yeah. So if, some of my old passwords, they've been in those data breaches like 10 or 20 times. Yeah. So, all right. So your email appears in a dark web data dumps, just like mine did, right? So one of the things I need to do is make sure that I keep my passwords new, right? Okay. Your friends or colleagues are receiving emails from you that you did not send, right? Yeah. So this is where somebody's taken over your account. It may be like it's an old account. Like maybe you have multiple email addresses, right? And somebody's taken it over. You may not even notice it because you haven't logged into it, but your friends are getting emails, okay, from you, okay, saying, I'll take some real examples out of my own life, right? Is that in the last year or so, I've had 2 friends write me and say, I really need money. I'm really in desperate shape, and I need some money. And the first time it happened, I kind of thought about it a little bit, But then the second time it happened, it was from somebody who I know is very, very wealthy. And so I knew that I couldn't help him out. So it was obviously, and it turned out that the account had been out of the dark web. Somebody had gotten the email and the password and taken over the account. Right. There's others besides Have I Been Pawned, Dehashed, and there's a few others that you can There's some tools that are available on GitHub and other places that you can use to go ahead and search the dark web for your email address, and sometimes actually see the passwords that were used. A lot of some of the browsers nowadays and some of the other antivirus, anti-malware systems will look for your email for you in the dark web. So sometimes those are just automated. You don't have to do it yourself, and they'll send you an alert to say, hey, we found your email. But you probably should check occasionally, like I just did, to see whether or not your credentials have been dumped into the dark web. All right. Unknown charges to your bank or credit card. Okay,
Yep.
that's probably a good indication too.
Yep.
Although, once again, this doesn't necessarily mean that your computer has been hacked. It can mean that simply somebody has your credentials again, right? But going from your credentials to actually taking over your computer is not that big of a step. So once somebody has your credentials, it becomes increasingly easy to start taking over all of your accounts. Right? Number 10 on this list is your antivirus or anti-malware has been disabled. Right? If that's disabled, then it's probably somebody's gotten into your system. This is one of those areas where you can be pretty sure that unless you disabled your antivirus, anti-malware, that you probably have somebody inside your computer. Let's be clear when I say somebody inside your computer. That simply means that they've got some malware in there that they can control your machine. Doesn't literally mean there's somebody inside your computer. Right? It means that somebody has pawned, some people call pawned or owned your computer. That just means that they've got some malware inside there that allows them to control your computer, right? And if in some cases it's only to use your computer, like I said earlier, to mine crypto or use it in a botnet, but somebody's inside there, and so you still have to be concerned. They may not be stealing your accounts, but they're still using your resources. And then once your system is compromised, very often that system will find its way onto the dark web, and other people will then do malicious things or worse things with it. So once it's compromised, it then gets communicated out on the dark web that say, hey, this is an IP address that is part of our botnet that we've compromised. It's vulnerable to this type of attack. You can take it over with this, and this. So that's a good indication that somebody's inside there, right? Is that you have antivirus or malware has been disabled, all right? So one of the things, if we want to take the next step, right, in being able to determine whether or not our system is actually compromised, is that we can actually use some tools that are excellent for being able to find services on your system. Services are basically just a process. It's like an application that's running in the background, and that's what the attacker is using to control your system. So you have to think about this from the attacker. They put malware onto the system. That is a process, right? And that process allows them to connect to your computer and control it. Well, there's two things that are indicators here for you as somebody who might be a target, is that there's probably a process that is running on your system, okay, that you can see, right? Now, there's a lot of processes running on your system, right?
That's the hard part,
so that's the hard part, right, is distinguishing the good ones from the bad ones, right? So in Linux, you can use PSAUX to see all the processes, right? You can use Task Manager in Windows. And also there's a tool, okay? This is Process Explorer in Windows. It's a SysInternals tool. So SysInternals is now a division of Microsoft, but it originally was a separate entity that Microsoft purchased, and they have a lot of excellent tools in sysinternals. So let's take a look at some of these here and see what we can do. All right, let's go and take a look. I got a virtual machine. So in Kali, we have, or any Linux, okay, for that matter, we can do PSAUX, right? It shows us all the processes that are running, right? So if we had some malware on our system, it's going to show up here somewhere, right? The problem is that the hard part is being able to determine the good ones from the bad ones, right? And so we've got all of these processes. Of course, you can also, we can use grep to be able to search for any particular process name. The problem is determining, which ones are malicious. So you can't really search, okay, unless you know the name of the process. Or you can search by name. You can see all of the processes that are running on this system. And there's not really a whole lot going on in this system, but lots of processes running. It'll show up in there somewhere, okay, if you know what you're looking for. Yeah. There's also, you can use netstat. And netstat, I've used netstat a number of times to find malware, all right? And it's really simple, because remember that the attacker has to have a connection to your machine, right? They can't control your machine if they don't have a connection to it. So it's going to show up in these connections here. And so, once again, it comes down to your knowing, okay, what's good and what's bad. But one of the things that you can do is, as you see each of these processes, you can just, if anything looks out of place, you simply do a little Google search on it, right? And see if it's a legitimate process. There's a lot of processes running, right? And oftentimes you'll find, if you don't find that it's a legitimate, or in many cases, you'll find a reference to it on, on some website that it's a malicious process. Then you can just kill the process, all right? Because we know that we can kill processes in Kali by just using the kill command, the kill9 command, right? And then whatever, the malicious process. And that will at least kill it for the moment, right? That'll kill it for the moment. It'll knock it out, right? Stop it. But in some cases, good malware will restart when you reboot your system. But it'll stop it for right now, right? And so that's one of the things you can do. If the attacker, even if the attacker has malware inside your system, all right, if you stop the malware or you stop the connection, right? Because notice these are all the ports right here, right? And so you can block those ports and then keep the attacker from controlling the system. They still might have malware in your system, but if they can't connect to it, it doesn't do them any good. All right?
Yeah.
All right. So that's kind of what we can do. And that's going to apply both for Mac, okay, from the command, the terminal in Mac, as well as in Linux and Unix versions, because Mac is a version of Unix. So then let's go ahead and see if we can get a Windows machine up, which is probably what most people are using who are watching this video. And let's see if we can get it started. Well, David, what I've done is I've gone ahead and put some malware on my Windows machine. This is a Windows 10 machine. It's a VM of a Windows machine. And for those of you who are interested, you can get an evaluation copy from Microsoft. So if you want to go ahead, I mean, some people write me all the time, like, where can I get a Windows 7 machine? Or where can I get a Windows 10 machine? You can get these Windows enterprise evaluations and you can create a virtual machine, but then of course at 90 days they die, but then you just go get another one and install it. Okay, so that's what I'm doing here. This is an evaluation. This is a Windows 10 machine, and what I've done is I've put some malware, I created some malware in Kali, and I put it on the desktop. I went and executed it as administrator, right? And now you can see that in Task Manager, it's right there. Now, one of the things that you're going to see in reality is it's not going to be called malware.
Exactly.
I did that simply to demonstrate, to show you how it works. But very often what will happen is that you look at these processes down below here, right? You see some of these Windows processes, lots of processes running on your system. So very often the malware developer will use a name like service host, right? Or a small variation on that service host, right? So that it looks like it belongs here, right? And you see some of these other processes that are running. So one of the things that you want to do, all right, is to go through this, and somewhere you're going to find a process that doesn't belong there. But of course, the important point is to know what your system looks like normally. Generally, okay, so what's happening here in the task manager is that you can arrange them. I just clicked on the memory to see which ones are using the most resources. Right? This is showing me what's using the most memory and what's using the most in terms of CPU, which one's using the most, clicking on them and ordering them, right? And oftentimes, if your malware is particularly using up a lot of your resources, you'll see it pop up to the top, right? In this case, this malware is not being used. So it's somewhere down here. There it is right there. There's malware too, okay? So it's running. It's using only using a couple of megs of memory. It's not using any CPU because the hacker is right now is not doing anything with it. It's sitting idle in the background on my system, right? So one of the things that you can do as an average user is go ahead and click on that and then hit end task, right? And I've been able to do that on some very quick and dirty systems where a lot of the attacks that I see, most of them are not very sophisticated. If you're being attacked by a nation state, you're going to have some pretty sophisticated malware. But most people are not being attacked by nation states, right? And so it's going to be pretty easy to just click on this and then go ahead and end task, and that'll kill it, right? Some of the other things that we might want to look for, let's go open up a command shell in Windows, and we can do a netstat, and we can begin to see, okay, the connections, okay, that are on my system, okay. This 10 is connected here, okay. You see, this is my Windows machine, and here is the malware connecting, right? And so this is one of the other ways that I can tell, like, okay, there's a connection here that I don't recognize, right? It shouldn't be there.
Doom is a bit strange, right? It's a bit of a giveaway.
Yeah, in this case, it is Doom. And then the other thing I wanted to show is Process Explorer. This is here's SysInternals right here. You can download this by just going and Googling SysInternals at Microsoft, and there's all of these tools, okay? Look at all the tools that are in here. Right? But the one I want to show you, and the one that's most useful for this exercise, is Process Explore or Process Monitor. Because remember that these are processes running in the background. Extracted them. Here's Process Monitor. Okay, so here's Process Monitor, and we'll look at Process Explorer as well. And what this is doing is it's showing me all the processes that are running on the system. All right. And once again, we're looking for things that don't belong there. All right. And let's see if we can find our malware on this system. So these are all Explorer, the Microsoft Explorer. And these are all things that the system opens and is running. Let's go ahead and see if we can do a find. All right. And let's go malware. And there it is. Okay, so it's opening it. It says it's from Process Explorer. The File Explorer. And it looks like right there, okay, malware to exe. The file shows you the file being created there, right? That's when we put it on the system. And then let's go and see if we can go find. Let's go find all the. There's one of them. Here's create the file map. Okay, and we should find the execution and opening of that file there somewhere. Let's go ahead and take a look at the Process Explorer, which I think demonstrates a little bit better, right? So let's see, let's go and open it up and go process explorer right here. So the process monitor shows us the process, each process in a timeline of when they've actually been executed, right? Over here, this shows us the processes and shows us the sub-processes, so the child processes that are running off it. Let's see if we can find our malware here.
There it is.
There it is, right there. Okay, you can see the malware right here. All right. And so this is a process that doesn't belong there, right? And so this is one of the ways we can tell that we've got something that is probably malicious. You can see here that I just right-clicked on it, and then I had kill process. I can go ahead and kill it now, and it'll stop that process. So this is probably the Process Explorer is my preferred method. You can use Task Manager, right? But Process Explorer is probably the best way to find the malicious processes. And then lastly, let's go ahead, and we're just looking today at Windows. And then lastly, let's go ahead and take a look at Wireshark. Okay, and for your viewers, most of your viewers, of course, have seen Wireshark, right? And they know how to use it. And it's been Chris has been on many times showing how to use Wireshark. Is that his name, right, Chris?
Yes.
Yeah, Chris. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's see if we can get some traffic. Okay, so this is Wireshark, right? And what Wireshark will do for the user is simply show all of the traffic, all of the packets that are traversing your system. And the reason that this is important to you as somebody who's trying to diagnose the malware is that it's going to show the connection between, your system and the hacker, right? So one of the things that you might want to do, go through here and just start looking, for unusual connections. Now, it's not that easy to do, as I said, because sometimes it's, they're kind of, unless you're familiar with this, let's generate, let's see, we got our malware still running. I think that I have it running on the port of the devil, 666. So that's the port that the devil uses when it's hacking your system. Let's see if we can find it. Aha! you can see these here. This is the connection. Okay, this is the connection between the hacker and your system. Okay, it's going back and forth between, and this is of course on a local area network. In reality, you would find a public IP address in here. You find your own private IP and then the public IP of who was controlling it, right? So it would give you an IP address and you could search to see who's controlling it. Now, very often, you see the traffic, we're getting more connections. It's the same connection, just packets going between. But oftentimes the hacker will use a proxy or a command and control server. So even though you might get the IP address of who's controlling your system by going to Wireshark, it's not always going to lead you in the right place. A good attacker is going to use an intermediary system. The amateur hacker, which, there's a lot of amateur hackers out there. So we can't over or underestimate them because there's a lot of people. I've seen a lot of malware that, are really amateur that, people will call up and say, oh, I'm Microsoft. This is a common one that maybe your viewers have seen. They'll call up and say, we're Microsoft and we have seen some unusual activity on your system. And we need you to download this particular app and it'll clean your system. Right? Oh, okay, of course, I'm going to do that. And they download an app, and then that app then connects to the hacker in some foreign country, and then they take control, and then they go ahead and harvest whatever information they can get from your machine. And those types of attacks tend to be very simple. Right? They tend to be very rudimentary attacks. Now, if you're talking about a nation state attacker, then you can be sure that they're not using their own IP address. They're using an intermediary IP address, and they're using malware that is going to be more difficult to detect. So, for instance, we were talking about using different names. Let's go back and look at oftentimes they'll use service hosts like this right here. And but instead of it'll have like one letter different, okay, or rather than an O, it'll be a 0. So it'll look like it belongs on your system, right? But it's really malicious. So one of the things that if you want to be careful, you want to make certain that you catch changes, you have to know what's on your system initially. So you have to have some idea. So I recommend that people, at the very least, take a look at your task manager. So you have some idea, right, on a Windows system, and have a good idea of what is legitimate and what's not. And in my case, it's pretty easy to determine which one's illegitimate because it says malware. Yours is not going to say malware. It's going to say something probably very similar to these. I've seen actually some of them that actually look like anti-malware service executables. So it's actually malware that says it's anti-malware. So these are some of the simple ways that you can be able to determine whether or not you've been compromised or hacked. And of course, the one thing that is irrefutable that you have been hacked is if you get something like this on your screen.
Yep.
If you get this message on your screen, you've probably been hacked. We can probably say 100% certainty that you've been hacked. If you do get a screen like this, one of the things that you can do is you can always restore your files from backup. This is why backups are so important. Is because if somebody encrypts your files like ransomware does. So ransomware, what it does is it gets inside your system and then encrypts all of your files, right? It doesn't necessarily encrypt your operating system. It encrypts all your data files. Word documents, your Excel files, your pictures, your database, all those things are going to be encrypted. If you made backups recently, then basically all you can do is to remove the ransomware and then restore all of your files. So this is why your best ransomware protection is to make sure you have backups, because if you do get encrypted, then you can just restore your files and you don't have to pay the ransom.
So OTW, thank you so much for doing this demo. I just wanted to check that malware, is it connecting to your Kali, or is it just, what is it actually doing?
Right. There's packets going back and forth. And what I have done is simply created some malware in Metasploit, right? And so what I can do is I can go IP config to show that I'm actually on that Windows system. Okay, you can see here the different interfaces. All right, and there's the IP address of the Windows system. I can go dir. I can see the directories: Microsoft Edge, desktop INI, malware is on that system. Amazing.
So you can control the Windows computer from this Linux box, basically, right?
I can control this. Yes, I can control the Linux system from this box. Right. So, but the limitation that I have is that I'm limited to the scripts of the interpreter, which are, there's quite a few. I can just use the help screen and see that, I can do a hash dump on that system. Okay, I can get the system. These are all the things I can do. I can record the mic and do a webcam chat and a webcam snap. I can take pictures off it. All right. I can put a keylogger on the system and see it. So I can control most everything. The way I have it set up here, I can't control the mouse, though. I cannot. I can set up my malware to give me mouse control, but in this case, all I've done is set it up so that I can run these commands on that system.
So you mentioned that one of the telltale signs of malware is your antivirus is turned off. So is that what's happened here as well?
Yes. On this particular system, there's the antivirus. I think there's only the Windows
Like Defender, yeah.
Yeah, Windows Defender, that's on the system. I don't have any external or auxiliary antivirus, and it is off on this system. If it was on, it would detect the malware. Now, that's because this is a well-known and simple malware.
Yeah.
Malware, the antivirus systems basically rely upon a number of ways to be able to determine if something's malware. And one of the things that they do is they have signatures of known malware. And so if there's not a signature for the malware, it's not going to detect it. Now, most cases, if it's an exe file, your system is going to alert you and say, do not execute this, or you should not, or do you want to execute this, right? And this particular one is an exe file, right? So it's going to go ahead and prompt you and say, do you sure you want to run this file?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of one of the signs that you maybe shouldn't, but you would probably not be surprised at how many times people do, right? So in this case, the antivirus, the Windows Defender is disabled, and we got this virus malware running on the system, and we can see it through multiple views, through either Task Manager, Process Explorer, or Process Monitor. And it exists in all of them, and we can also see it through Wireshark. So if you want to take that step and learn these tools, right, then this is a good way of being able to determine whether or not your system has been hacked, right? We talked earlier about some of the simple ways, some of the symptoms, right? The symptoms of your system, that may indicate that it's been hacked. These tools are going to be more definitive to tell you whether or not you've been hacked.
So OTW, I really want to thank you for sharing, your knowledge. You've been hacking for many, many years, and it's so nice that you're taking that hacking knowledge and now helping people better protect themselves. So thanks so much for sharing, but also for doing a demo so that we can see this practically.
Well, you're very welcome, David. I always enjoy being on your show and trying to share with the public, the best practices of cybersecurity.
That's brilliant, OTW. Hopefully we can get you back soon. For everyone who's watching, please put your comments below, stuff that you want us to cover. OTW and I have discussed perhaps doing something more complicated than this, like perhaps going in more detail. So OTW, that might be a great topic.
I'd love to do that. We could do more like the forensic analysis of an attack or a hack.
So that'd be great. So for everyone, put your comments below. OTW, thanks so much.
Thank you, David. See you soon.